Hi, I'm OmfgReallyNicki, and this video is a video that was requested by a few people because they know that I am an adoptive parent, and honestly the topic of adoption can be really daunting, and today's video I'm not actually going to go into the actual process of adopting yet, just because there's a lot of information out there that honestly, there's a lot of information out there, but it's really hard to collect and get the information that you need to even know where to start, because it's a very intimidating process. And truthfully, because of this, I probably would have adopted years earlier than I did, but I just didn't know where to start or what to look for, or, you know, what information I was being told was incorrect. So this is just a quick video to talk about the different types of adoption. The very first one is what they call FOS-adopt, which is where you adopt a child out of foster care. And when you do this, this is one that I have done myself, so I've actually done almost all of them, except for the only one I haven't done is the one for overseas. But for FOS-adopt, you will, you know, you go through your process, everything you need to do, and then they match you with a child that's, you know, meets your criteria, and I'm gonna get into that in another video. But, you know, you do all your classes, all that stuff, and you're approved, and then you match with a child that's, they're not always in your area, but typically somewhere near you. So we were matched with my oldest. She's now almost 14. I got her when she was 2.5, and she wasn't actually officially adopted until she was over 4. She had visitations, which a lot of times when you have a FOS-adopt, it's very unlikely that you will find a child that does not have visitation with their biological family. Now, for her, they were kind of flaky. They didn't always show up, but they were things that we had to do. It was a mandatory requirement. You can't just not go because their parental rights have not been terminated, and that's just something that you typically do have to deal with. And a lot of people find that very off-putting, and it's very difficult. It can be very stressful, and it wasn't a fun process, but she was really young. She doesn't have any memory of any of that, and it wasn't horrible. So if you're, for financial reasons, I think if you're worried about money when it comes to adoption, that's going to be your best bet. If you just want to be a parent, you want to help a child, you want to have a child in your life like that, it's going to be the best way. Of course, someone's going to be calling me when I'm trying to make a video. So that's going to be the cheapest option, typically. The next type is where they do a relinquishment, and that is where someone who is pregnant decides that they're not going to keep their baby and they're going to give it to someone who you have to be approved and stuff. So you have to go through the same process, basically, although that process is a lot more expensive, but it's also a lot quicker. But they have 30 days and they could change their mind. All of my children have the same biological mother, but all 3 of them have been different types of adoption or situation. So for that, you get to take the baby home from the hospital, and then hope that they don't change their mind. And that's a little scary, but in my situation, the parents' rights has already been terminated several times, so it was unlikely, even if she didn't sign the paperwork, that she would be able to keep the baby. And the father was like, no, I don't want to be involved, and I'm not going to sign anything. I'm just not going to do anything. I'm not going to be involved. End of story. Not every case is like that. Not every case is that easy. And it has its own stress, and it was a lot more expensive. It's about 3 to 5 times more expensive depending on what agency you go through. And I'm going to talk about that in another video also, because there's so many different facets to the adoption process, and being smart about it and knowing what to look for and what the price range should be. Like, to me, it's honestly sad that it costs money to help a child that just needs a family to love them. Like, that seems insane to me, especially for foster children. I understand, in a sense, the relinquishment, because it's different, because after 30 days, a lawyer does whatever they need to do. Everything's legal. It's filed. It's done. While a FOS-adopt takes sometimes years. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's not. I think you have a mandatory requirement of you have to have them in your home for 6 months with a FOS-adopt, and you have to essentially be their foster parent for 6 months before you can adopt, regardless. That's just a requirement. That's just how it works. I don't know if that's so that maybe family, because they do try to, like, place them with family if it's possible, and You know, things can come up, things can happen. I don't know how often it is. And typically they don't place a child with a family if they really don't have a strong reason to believe that this child is going to have an issue being adopted. The third type is a like guardianship type situation where I didn't actually have guardianship myself, but it's a very long story, but I had children that ended up in my care, and they needed to have a legal guardian. So my roommate at the time got guardianship of them, and she had them for a very long time. The mother was able to do what she needed to do, and she was able to get them back, but sometimes you can end up adopting children that you have guardianship of, whether they're related to you or not. In this case, they were not. Although, like I said, the mother did get them back. She was not able to adopt the kids. So that can happen. And for my youngest, which, like I said, all 3 of mine have the same mother, but he was supposed to also be a relinquishment, like my second. And she signed the paperwork, and then a couple weeks later decided to revoke her signature. And like I said before, they have 30 days to do that. And so when she revoked her signature, she didn't take him, she didn't get him back. She still would have had to, like, I don't think she realistically could have had custody of him. They wouldn't have given him to her because, like I said, she's already had her rights terminated before the relinquishment before him. So, and there's other issues that I don't want to talk about just because it's not my life, it's her life. And while I know these things about her, I don't particularly want to shed a negative light on someone that is the biological parent of any of my children. Not because those things aren't real or they're not a problem, but just because I feel like she's had a difficult life and certain things have happened to her that, while I don't like some of the things that she's done, I can understand where she's coming from, and I understand that at least she was making an effort to do the right thing. When you're in maybe an abusive situation, you have issues with drugs and things like this, it affects a lot of things. So I try to just not be judgmental and just be like, okay, you know, she did the best that she could, and that's why she chose to give up the last 2, because she knew that she just wasn't able to do it. And I appreciate that, because that even that decision is not something that everyone can do, or even a choice that people can make sometimes. So it just is what it is. So anyways, she revoked her signature, but like I said, she didn't try to get him back. I think she was more just mad at me because she was trying to do kind of like a joint custody thing, and that's just not how it works. They're allowed, you know, to get some pictures, and like you can choose to do visitation, but it's never mandatory. It's not a requirement. I do think that if someone is around and they want to have some access to them, I think that that's fair, and I think that that's right. At least pictures, letters, something, or even you can send them a video, whatever, because it's just a difficult thing for them, I'm sure. But then she just she got some money and bought a house out of state and then just disappeared, and I haven't really heard a whole lot since. There was a couple times she contacted me, and then that was it. So she never took him back, so I just immediately filed for guardianship, and unfortunately I lost my adoption money, which that sucked, but it is what it is. But she didn't take him. I still have him. He's almost 6 now? Yeah. I can't even keep track. I have too many kids at this point. But, so I just got guardianship of him, and I've had that, and I could adopt him, but there's reasons why I do not at the moment. Like, I've looked into it, and it's just very complicated, and it'd be very difficult. And when you adopt a child that is at risk or that it is in foster care, a lot of times you do get a little bit of money to help take care of them. And if I were to try to adopt him, it would cost me thousands of dollars, and I would lose that little bit of money that I get for him, and there's not even a guarantee that it would work. Like, it's super complicated for his particular situation, because I think his father is incarcerated at the moment, and he's not on the birth certificate, so I don't know that even like getting his signature to be able to do anything would work. I've talked to the adoption place and stuff about it, and it's a mess. So once I know more about that, maybe I'll make a video on the actual process, and if once we figure out what we need to do, because even they're not sure, because typically this happens, they live in the same state. They live several states away now. So, and I don't know for sure if that's where they still live. I haven't heard. And I tried to do that thing where you like look to see who's in jail, and I couldn't find anything, so I don't even know. But without actually getting an actual signature from them, it would just create a very expensive mess that might just end up a waste of money, and I'd still end up just his guardian. So at the moment, we're just kind of leaving it as is. The thing with guardianship, you do have to have a social worker come twice a year. Every 6 months they come, usually around their birthday, and then 6 months, which our visitation is tomorrow. The social worker just comes in. They basically just make sure that they have a place to sleep. They look like they're being taken care of, and they're kind of in and out. It's not like a huge thing. They talk to them a little bit and interact with them a little bit, and then that's it. So it's not super invasive. It's not super like a huge deal. Like with foster care, I think typically it was like once a month somebody came, approximately like every 30 days. So it's not so bad. And you still get a stipend to help take care of them, which a lot of people think, oh, you shouldn't adopt kids if you don't have the money for it. But the reality is people are struggling with money regardless, and children need a home. And if the only thing holding someone back is that financial aspect, and there's programs that allow them to get the help so that it makes it possible to be able to provide for a child, that you have to prove that you can provide for yourself. You can't be struggling anyway. You have to prove that you don't need that money. That money is just basically to help make sure that they're getting fed, they're getting clothed, and for like activities or whatever, just general needs. It's not, you can't live off of it anyway. It wouldn't even be enough. It's not for that. So that's just part of it. And I think truthfully, that's a really good program that is helpful, because I know a lot of people that probably don't know that, and it would probably change their outlook on being able to do it or not. So I think it's important to know that. If you're going to do it for the money, it's not going to be worth it. Don't do that, because it's not enough money for how much work it takes to raise a kid. It's just not. Definitely not. So that's another thing, because some people say, oh, people do foster care for the money. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. If you have to deal with kids 24/7, it's not worth the money. Like if you don't want kids and you just want money, don't do that, because there's no amount of money that's worth like putting yourself through that if that's not what you're wanting. But anyways, the last type, it's kind of a combination of several things, is where you adopt a child that's from a family member. This can be really complicated and kind of tricky, because a lot of people think, oh, it should be easier because I'm adopting a child from a family member. But if that child, it kind of depends too. It was that child in foster care, and then they were like, or they, CPS stepped in and said, hey, we have to take this child. Is there someone in the family that can take it? And you're like, hey, yeah, I can do it. And then that's fine. It's a lot easier if that's the case. But if they chose to give you the child, it actually makes it more complicated. Especially if you want to do a relinquishment. I'm trying to think exactly how to phrase this. The difference is, because when you are dealing, it's going to be a lot of money. First of all, anytime you do a relinquishment, there's literally nothing you can do. Like, they can't just sign papers. It doesn't matter if you're related. You still have to go through single thing that anybody would have to go through. You have to have a home study. You have to, there's like a bunch of papers you have to fill out. Like, it's like a stack like this thick. You have to do it. Any adult living in your home has to fill out this paperwork. Even if they're just a roommate, everyone has to participate. If you have someone in the home that doesn't, then it's automatically no. They will not allow you to adopt that child. Everyone in the household that is over 18 has to pass a background check. They have to pass the Department of Justice. They have to do like the state. They have to do the federal, like the FBI, CIA, whatever, all of that. They literally have to pass with flying colors. There's some things, like if you have like something minor, you can't have any felonies. I know that. 0 felonies. If anyone in the household has felonies, it's an automatic no. And if you have a felony, you can't adopt a child. You can't. Unless you're the parent. If you're not the biological parent, the answer is no. You can't have they won't take the child necessarily, but an adoption isn't possible. They can't do it. The other thing is it's probably going to cost, like, it could cost anywhere from like $8,000 to like $50,000. There's a wide range. And the reason why I'm saying such a wide range is because when you go through everything, like, they will tell you. If you kind of do most of it on your own and you go through like an agency that is paid by the state, typically it's not going to cost you as much. You can probably do it for between 8 and 10, maybe 8 and 12, but it's a lot of money. It just is, because you're paying lawyer fees, a lot of lawyer fees. That's mostly what it's going to. Plus you have to pay for, because you still have to have like, if you've had the child for a while, it's not a newborn, and that's not when you're taking custody, then you still have to do like kind of like the FOS adopt. You still have to do the 6 months of like visitation. You still have to do like all of the basic adoption things. And I think the thing is, a lot of people think because you're related, because you're a family member, that it's going to be easy. You don't have any special privilege. You literally have to go through the same process as anybody else. And the reason why I know this is because there is a family member that I was considering adopting their child, and then they decided not to have it. But I looked into all of the details, and I know a lot of people that have adopted because I've been through this many times. And I've helped a few people get through the process themselves, because I think once you've done it like enough times, you either are really passionate about it or you're over it. And I'm very passionate about it because I feel like every child deserves a family. Every child deserves someone who loves them and cares about them, whether you're related or not. I think that's really important. And some people are like super against adoption, and some people are very pro adoption. I don't think anyone should just have their child taken for no reason, but if there's valid reasons, it shouldn't be put on the child to go through hell only to end up living with someone else. They should have the option to have a better life and to move on with their life, rather than be dragged out only to end up still taken away, you know? That's just my personal opinion. If you don't agree with that, that's okay. But anyways, that is the types of adoption and some basic information about it. If you've been thinking about adoption, or if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and I can always talk to the adoption agency I've worked with. I still have like a good relationship with them, and they're always, anytime I have a question, even now, because I was just working with them for my youngest guardianship child that I was trying to adopt him, but it's drama. So if you guys have questions, you're curious about things, or let me even know what state you're in, and I can find out some information, because they have worked with some different states and stuff. But I can definitely find out information, and I will make some more videos about this, because I feel like it's important to get this information out and to know that it is actually possible, even if you don't have a ton of money. And I will tell you how to find out where to go if money is an issue. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate it if you guys would hit the like button and subscribe. And anytime you leave a comment, it just, I don't know, it's always nice to see that someone actually has an opinion on what I've said, or questions or whatever. I always like to interact with people, so all of those things I greatly appreciate, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.